Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of B is for Build. In today's episode, we're gonna be pulling the engine to check our accessory belt and our accessory belt alignment, make sure it's all nice and straight. We're gonna modify our fuel system so that we stop running out of fuel, because that's a big problem. We're gonna change the wiring in the Lamborghini so it's a lot more like we originally designed it. And we're also gonna be looking at possibly trying to rebuild the whole center console so we can get a little bit more room in there if we need it. We'll also test out some seating arrangements too. So a lot of good stuff. The goal is by the end of this episode to be able to just like street drive this thing, have it all out, go rip it around, maybe take it to the DMV, get it registered, that type of stuff. Stay tuned. All right, getting started. Oscar is going to start on the engine pull procedure. So bumper comes off, air to water comes off, exhaust comes off, turbos come off, all of our back scaffolding comes off, and hopefully we'll be able to pull this engine out. I'm gonna get started on the electrical. I gotta install two 300 amp relays in the front up there. Alright guys, time for an update. So Oscar is about halfway through pulling stuff out. You can see the rear scaffolding's out, the air to water intercooler is out, all the piping for that, bunch of other good stuff has been taken out. Working on the fuel lines and the intake manifold right now, so we can get the wiring free and then can start thinking about the pull. On the front end relay side of the world, I made some room. I got some stuff ready to go ahead and install the relays, but then I wanted to double check some of the Lamborghini systems because I remembered that the heater controls weren't working. And I think that's because there was a cable that was lost or missed in the center console installation phase. So that's what I've been disassembling and hunting down. This all needed to come out anyways because I want to rebuild it all custom like I've mentioned. So I got to keep digging under there until I find the cable that goes into there, test it out, make sure that the heater controls are going to work, because I really want a heater in this car. And then once I figure all that stuff out, I can start looking at installing those relays up front. I did some hunting around on the center console and found that little plug right there. That was the one that was missing. Once we plugged it in, turned the car on, the kind of HVAC whole system thing worked perfectly. So the heater's back and everything's back. So that's awesome. So I'll be designing something where I can trim that, throw away that part, keep that part, integrate it with that part, and go closer to straight down, and then something that looks cleaner going back that way. Later tonight I'm going to test seats out, but until then I'm going to move into the front here, start looking at how what I need to build and 3D print to house these guys. So something like this is pretty unsafe because there's a bunch of power that runs through here, and obviously if this hits any of that, it's going to be really bad. So these things need caps on them to make them a little bit cleaner, and it'd be great if they had their own kind of mounting point. So what I want to do is kind of take this one as an example and start looking at how I'm going to take down a bunch of measurements, and then I'll design something in 3D print something out to house these ones. So there's two right here for Lamborghini. There's two more down there that do Lamborghini stuff. I want those to be separated in their own little housed units and running into these relays here. All right, I got all my power distribution like boxes, holdy dealies all sketched out. I'm gonna go ahead and 3D model those and print those tonight. I'll show you those when they are done. Now we're ready to go ahead and pull the engine. Engine's out of the car. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that in the lifetime of this car, but hey, it's back out. So the pros over at Renegade Hybrids, when they heard that we were throwing some belts, they said, listen, you guys probably don't have your whole system aligned, and it needs to be aligned very, very well. They recommended this crazy tool that I can find on Amazon. It's a laser based tool for alignment. So Oscar and I are going to learn how this thing works. We're going to calibrate it with here, and then we're going to apply it to our accessory belt system so we can work on the alignment of this thing. Two big things we got to do while the engine's out: align that, fix the fuel system. All right, so we did some 3D printing, and I printed a real rough draft of a little box. And basically 2 power cords are going to run to there, do a 2-into-1, and then stick out and connect up to a massive, massive relay. So this is like a prototype, and it's actually going to be a working prototype. So I need to print 1 more of these and then 1 more of a totally different kind. And then I will show you that, kind of how I get it all hooked up in the front there when we have all 3 of them there. And that's going to just split up the Lamborghini stuff into 3 different sections. 1 section that's always on, 2 sections that are switched on. That way we can manage it a lot better from our switches inside the dashboard. But for now, we are going to move over into fuel tank world. So we got our serpentine belt, new serpentine belt on order. So we're waiting on that, and then we're gonna move over here and pull these 2 fuel cells out and figure out what was our problem and fix it. We got the main half of the fuel cell out, and I could hear some things clanking around in here. It definitely had enough fuel in it as well. So we've got some serious investigation to do. We're back in the other shop. We're just gonna go ahead and break this thing down in here where we got plenty of space and try and see if we can figure out what was going on. All right guys, so we tore these things apart. We started looking in them, and man, nothing is really making sense. We thought we had a solution no matter what, and then Lamborghini's fuel pump system has to be like stupid. They have a transfer fuel pump over there that we thought we were going to be able to use to transfer some fluids, and right now that's being really annoying, but we're glossing over that, and what we want to do is figure out why we were running out of fuel in the first place. It really doesn't look like our Venturi system should have been causing as big as a fit as it did, so we've taken it off, and what we're going to do right now is a bench test. So we're going to power 1 fuel pump, and it's going to put fuel out one of these outlets. We're not sure which one. We're going to figure that out, and then we're going to run the return back in the tank, and it should just do a nice little cycling thing for a long while. So let's we're going to go ahead and give that a shot and make sure that at least functions. Come work at BS World, they said. It'll be fun, they said. We just took a shower in gasoline. I'm guessing something about our return isn't returning as fast as we thought. We built up quite a bit of pressure really fast there. Just blasted this whole thing. Oh man. Well, this isn't a safe place to work. TJ, if you're wondering why I didn't text you back, that's why. All right, so we ran a few bench tests and everything is like looking kind of how we would expect it to operate. We're really thinking that our Venturi was malfunctioning in some sort of a weird way. So we're gonna focus on the Venturi because no matter what way we really look at this, like the Venturi system, if it actually operates where the return line basically creates a vacuum and sucks fuel from that tank over to that tank, is really gonna be the best option for how we want to do this without running any complex electronics. So I'd rather do it the analog way. So we're just going to keep bench testing. We're going to keep testing the system and testing out the Venturi and make sure it's operational and make sure that we can install it in a way that we know will reliably work, because we really don't want to have to pull these things back out. Out a lot of stuff with our bench test over here, and what we actually figured out was that, so when we installed the Venturi, for one reason or another, I didn't include a tube that ran past the Venturi joint, and I think that that was part of the problem. Well, we were actually able to test it, and it's a huge part of the problem. With no hose here that goes into that bucket of fuel, it actually shoots fuel out that way and pressurizes it out this way. So what it was doing was it was shooting fuel from this tank, pulling it from this tank and then pushing it over to that tank, and that tank has on its crossover tube, it actually curves up inside here and goes way up towards the top of here to prevent crossover sloshing or whatever. I'm not really sure why they did that. So that was why our Venturi was actually acting in reverse. It was pushing the fuel to the other tank rather than sucking it over. So what we've done is a bunch of different testing and stuff like that to figure out why that was happening and how we're going to make that not happen. So we've come up with a solution. Mainly it's that this hose needs to go into fuel at all times. We lowered our Venturi size a little bit, and then we're going to do one more test, but this is going to be in-tank fuel test. So we're going to actually put that in this tank right here, and then we're going to run some temporary clear hosing because that stuff won't hold up against E85, but we're going to temporarily run that across into the other tank and then make sure that we can see the flow coming over into this other tank. And once we got that done, we're going to call it a win. All right, we did our final test and the results were great. So basically all we needed was that little bit of extra line to run the return line all the way down and into the fuel, into the return fuel tank for the Venturi system to work. So how we had it before was actually pushing fuel at a pretty good rate into the wrong fuel tank. That's why we didn't have any fuel. Now it is sucking. So that clear line, that doesn't work. We're gonna need to run to the auto parts store and buy some actual fuel line. And then we gotta design a system to where we can have it installed and have it in the right place in that tank while then running it over and plugging it into our Venturi system. But we think we got a solution for that. Before we run to the auto parts store though, Oscar's got our belt and I want to go ahead and test fit that, make sure it works before, in case we need to run to the auto parts store again. So let's go test fit that. We got the wrong belt. We measured backwards. We took off an inch instead of adding an inch. Doesn't really matter. We're gonna go to the automotive store, get a new belt and some more fuel line. All right, we got a new belt. Let's try this again. All right, cool. We got our belt fit on there, and as Oscar pointed out, weight reduction. We eliminated 10 inches of belt, guys. Every gram matters. All right, we're going back to the other shop. We're gonna figure out our fuel line. So we gotta just figure out how to fix our Venturi line into the bottom of this tank and then run it this way so we can attach it later on over here. Ended up doing was inside here, right underneath this thing, was a transfer pump. It's a Lamborghini stock transfer pump. We took the pump out of its basket and used the basket to be the harness for our Venturi line, so it goes straight in and sucks right from the bottom of that fuel tank, and then obviously that thing's going to run into there when we set it all up. Then we got everything buttoned back up. Now it's time to bring it over into the other shop and start looking at reinstallation. right, guys, we got the fuel system back in. So it's got the Venturi running across the cross system, and then we got all of our braces and everything and our straps back down. So that's the fuel system nailed. We got our fan belt on here too. So those were our big, kind of engine, actual, physical running of the car things knocked out. Now we're still working on 3D printing and handling some electrical up front, but I think what we've decided to do is when we bought our insanely good upgraded clutch from HCF, we also got some drop gears that go in the midsection of this transaxle around here. And what that's gonna do is change our gearing ratio, so we're gonna be better suited for the track. So this was meant for an Audi R8 V8, which the gearing ratio is not terrible, but our top speed's not gonna be good enough, and our drag racing wouldn't be anywhere near what it should be. And given that it takes us a whole day, as we found out, to pull this engine out, and we have to pull the engine out to pull the trans off of it, we're thinking it's time to install the drop gears now. So this is where we're gonna call this episode. We're gonna call it good here. We're gonna try and get it all back on the street and ready to roll. But before I challenge Rob Dahm, and before we just put this engine back in here, I wanna make sure that we're putting it back in here with all of the good mods on it that we need. So that's a wrap for this one. Hey guys, bad news, but kind of good news maybe for one of you. Chelsea fender bendered the M5 again. So in the background, she fender bendered it a while back, and then we fixed it. And she fender bendered it again tonight, actually.
No!
Yeah, this is going in.
No!
We're selling the M5. It's gone. Guys, we have a very lightly crashed M5. If anybody's looking to do a rebuild, it actually still has a clean title. And you can see the playlist. I'll put the playlist in the end screen here. If anybody's interested in the story behind that M5, it's a really, really great car. It runs great, except for the fact that she just, kind of tapped somebody with it. So follow me on Instagram if you want more details about that. I'm gonna post about a day after this episode comes out. I'll be posting, and I'm just looking for someone local that might want a project like the M5, and we'll obviously let it go at a reasonable price, because I think it's time to get her a new car, a different car. Anyways, I'm ready to get rid of the M5, so I'm going to be posting about that, details about that on my Instagram. BS for Build on Instagram if you guys want to follow us there and get more information about that. It'll be a good deal for somebody. All right, guys, that's it. In the next episode, we're going to upgrade this transmission, make it awesome, get it back in the car, get the car on the street. I promise you that. I'll see you then. Peace! Come on.